Good afternoon everyone, welcome to this Facebook Live which is based here at the Bridewell police station in the middle of Bristol, one of our busiest police stations and an area where there's a lot of partnership working with some important teams like our Lighthouse Victims and Safeguarding team are here, offender management, and we work closely with probation and the local council and lots of other partners here, so it's a great place to be. It's been a busy summer for the police, have a lot of issues to manage. We're going to go straight in and answer some questions. I'm here today covering for Sue, who is on well-earned leave. She'll be back soon, but I'd just like to welcome Andy Marsh, Chief Constable, and put some questions to you on behalf of the public, Andy. So the first one is about the busy work that you've been doing over the last few weekends, particularly around these car meets that we've had an awful lot of. I know we've had some at Cheddar and in the Gorge there over the last few weeks, haven't we? And we also had one on the Downs at the weekend. But also to talk about unlicensed events and also the planning you're doing for, I think we've got some demonstrations planned for this weekend, haven't we?
So it has been a busy time. We're averaging up to and sometimes above 1,999 calls every day. That's alongside the less urgent business. I think it's important for people viewing sometimes that we don't always focus on the problems, and whilst this started with a problem, did just want to say a thing about we had a couple of robberies in the Mendips last 10th of August and then one late in July. They were linked. Just to reassure people in the Mendips, and I live there, I know that I was concerned about it, that we've charged a man called Jimmy Young. He's been charged with 2 robberies and 2 firearms offences and a vehicle offence. So I was with the detectives this morning and just thought I'd mention what a fantastic job they did of pulling together pieces of evidence and bringing an individual to a point of charge.
It's good to hear.
So it does continue to be a busy time, John. We've been concerned about preventing, as far as possible, unlawful music gatherings, raves and car cruises. We've appealed in the past to members of the public to give us information. If you see people setting things up, if you see news on the web about a car gathering, a meet or a music event, tell us. And we have had a really good response to that. We've mounted an operation every weekend, and we will be mounting an operation this weekend to do our very best to prevent them. So the appeal is to do that again. Certainly in respect to those car events, the one on the Downs was dispersed within a couple of hours. It did cause disruption and damage. We'd rather have been able to prevent that, but we dispersed it as quickly as we could. Certainly it's a recurring theme in Cheddar. We're working with all of the partners and the community, and on each occasion that gathering takes place in Cheddar now, we do an awful lot of enforcement. We see some vehicles, we prosecute some people. We'd rather not do that. We'd rather it didn't happen in the first place, and enforcement's got a part to play, but I'm very pleased to say that there is some significant problem solving that we hope will make the problem go away significantly in the future.
As you know, Andy, we get an awful lot of communications into our office about road safety and speeding in particular, and people are generally quite frightened by it, I think, aren't they? So it's good to hear that work's going in.
We understand the concern, and when we come to the music events, never mind the disruption. We are in the middle of a pandemic. This is a serious moment in time, and actually I would appeal to everyone. We need to all do our bit to get through this together. So it's not the weekend to be coming out in gatherings, in private places, big gatherings, or indeed protests.
Indeed, you mentioned protests. I was at a meeting this morning with the Mayor of Bristol and the Director of Public Health. They were telling me that the infection rate for the COVID virus per 100,000 has increased quite significantly in Bristol in the last 7 days. They are very concerned about that. I know last week they put out some messaging appealing to people not to attend public demonstrations, and I think they're going to be repeating that in the next few days, because I think there's a big or a demonstration planned anyway, isn't there, this weekend?
So we've also seen little clusters of infections in Bath and North East Somerset, the Mid Norton Radstock area, a couple of pubs. So I would say we have the evidence that this is not the time to be putting our recovery from the pandemic at risk. It's not the time to be putting yourselves or your families at risk. Just to offer some reassurance about the protest, potentially 4 days of protest over the bank holiday weekend. We are making significant plans, and we're working with the council about how do we prevent disruption whilst allowing the right to protest, even though we'd say this is not the time to gather or protest. And amongst the other resources that we're gathering, I know that we've cancelled 70 police officers' rest days.
Yes,
and there's a lot more on top of that. Now, I met one of those police officers. They had to cancel an event they were having with their immediate family by way of a celebration. So this has got a real impact on my workforce. It comes at the end of a summer, which they haven't had a holiday. Many of them haven't had a break, and so I would appeal for our community. Look, let's keep calm, keep managing your social distancing, and work with us to help prevent raves, gatherings, and the like.
Thank you, Andy. I know what a busy summer it's been for them, and I know you don't take actions like cancelling rest days like these, so I do just want to, on behalf of local people, say thank you very much to those officers as well. Let's move on. We get an awful lot of questions and inquiries about drugs and knife crime, particularly with young people. As you know, Andy, about this time last year, we secured some funding. I think yourself and Sue approached the Home Office, and we were included in some funding, some £1 million a year, to basically grow a team in Bristol that was looking at knife crime and drugs, but also to set up teams across the rest of the area, 4 more teams, including all Somerset and the other unitary authorities, looking at violence reduction, but particularly knife crime and drugs issues affecting young people. I was fortunate enough to go and visit the Bristol team last Friday and see the work they're doing, working particularly with schools, with hospitals, with local authorities, but also with the voluntary sector. I know that your officers are embedded in those teams, and that you've been doing a lot of work in the constabulary on those issues as well. Could you just say a little bit more about that work and how you're supporting that work?
So when we look back at the last 12 months and look forward, none of us knew what would characterise this year in terms of policing. We have experienced a surge in violent crime, and we're worried about knife crime. And actually, for all of the changes and fluctuations of crime through COVID, knife crime and serious violence has continued to be a very serious concern. So it's still here, John. We might talk about the 20,000 uplift later. This could have been the year of uplift.
Yeah.
But of course, COVID's come along. Now, it's very important we haven't taken our eye off the ball with this violent crime. So some of the things that we're doing is working with partners to share data, to understand where are the vulnerable locations, who are the vulnerable people who have either been drawn into knife crime as a victim or an offender, and what can we do to prevent that. We are employing dedicated police and community support officers to work in schools, and actually every school in the Avon and Somerset area, is a commitment I made to the Commissioner Sue Mount-Stevens, would have a beat manager or a PCC aligned to it, and they are working with education, with local authorities, using our data to be intelligent to actually prevent harm and steer people away from trouble. But there's more to it than that. We're also doing high-profile patrols around those violent crime hotspots with targeted intelligence-led stop search. We're using knife arches, working with partners, including British Transport Police, to try and stop the violent crime. So there's a lot already in hand, and a lot more to be done. This is going to be a long-term strategy initiative.
And of course the Operation Remedy team, which was set up a year or so ago, has been operating across the force area, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, Remedy, one of Remedy's 3 objectives, so bearing down on burglary of people's houses, dealing with drugs-related criminality and knife crime, and the 2 are often associated. They've had a lot of success taking knives off the street, arresting offenders, but really, probably most importantly, John, the preventative work with local authorities, with partners and in schools.
Yeah. Excellent. And I would just like to mention, I mentioned the voluntary sector earlier. I was with Full Circle, Growing Futures and Bristol Horn Youth Concern, some of the key voluntary sector partners that are embedded in that team in Bristol as well. The voluntary sector play a key part in that role. Okay, you mentioned Uplift, Andy. Shall we just talk about that briefly? There's been a lot of national announcements about 20,000 officers. Could you say a little bit about when we might get to see fully trained officers here in Avon and Somerset from that 20,000? And also just perhaps to say a little bit about the thinking and the process about how you're thinking about how they'll best be deployed in the years to come.
So our portion of the 20,000, we reckon, well, we haven't got absolute clarity from the Home Office yet, to be about 403, 404. Some of that number has been enabled because of efficiency savings that we've made and previous commitments the Commissioners made with the precept. So we started this growth last year, and Operation Remedy was the first part, 100 new officers,
Sure.
knife crime, drugs, violence. So we've started to see some of that growth, but it's come through.
That's with the local council tax.
It is the local council tax has enabled
Yep.
op remedy to take place, and that's operating across the whole force. The Uplift officers, we've actually recruiting them at great pace. So 60 police officers joining Avon Somerset Constabulary every other month, working in partnership with the University of West of England, and we haven't missed a heartbeat on that recruitment. Those officers are quickly moving from their training environment into a training environment in the organisation, and they're out there now. I've been with them in Bristol, I've been with them in Somerset this week. The important thing to mention though is that it's a 3-year training programme now for new police officers. They earn a degree at the conclusion of that, and much of the 3 years, or a portion of it, is spent in a training environment, which does mean that actually the business of achieving the uplift and all of the benefits that go with it is actually a longer term thing. But
Of course.
we're starting to see the additional officers out on the beats, out on patrol already now. It's happening.
That's good to know. I'm sure people are reassured by that. It's been a busy summer, and we really need them out there as quickly as we can, don't we? Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to mention that as part, we're meeting with your team, aren't we, next month to talk about how those officers will be deployed in the years to come. We're going to be doing a consultation over the next few weeks to get some views from local people about how the virus has affected them, how that might affect policing, but also what issues they would like to see those officers deployed to use, bearing in mind that the constabulary have to cover a lot of other issues as well. But anyway, that's all we've got time for today. Sue will be back doing the next one of these in a few weeks. Thank you very much for tuning in.